In all but 2 of these instances, Childs was representing the boss, the defendant, against people alleging race and sex discrimination.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
The bright spot of the Biden administration has definitely been the NLRB so far. I mean, if you've read any of Jennifer Abruzzo's press releases, they have been very, very, very pro-worker and really attacking some of the things that employers have taken for granted. And that's been a bright spot.
I mean, by 2024, we may have all the anti-worker federal policies, from Trump administration gone, which is sad that that's kind of our threshold for success now is, hey, he will at least say nice things about unions and will undo the crap his predecessor did. So we can get back to the lovely status quo of 2016. So very disappointing that we haven't seen more. I don't know, maybe disappointment's not the right word because that would imply that I expected more.
Right.
And I didn't. In fact, I would say it's probably been better than I expected because you're right. I have been genuinely impressed with some of the work that's been done in terms of federal worker bargaining issues and the NLRA, but a lot left to be done.
Yes. And he looks like he wants to totally get rid of that.
Yeah, whatever goodwill he's been building, the Biden team's been building with the labor movement. And something you've touched on a few times is it's like when they have done something positive for labor, they don't go out and, campaign on it or really cheer about it. It's almost like they have some obligation to do some nice things occasionally. Like they realize they should do that for, if nothing else, just to keep the union packs flowing. But also know that would make them less popular with their corporate donors. So they are trying to thread the needle there of not totally alienating the labor movement while not totally alienating the CEOs and industry that backs them as well. So yeah, and this newest candidate that you're about to talk about, that could shred whatever goodwill has been built.
Yeah. So everybody knows by now, because Republicans are this is all they're talking about right now, that Biden has pledged to nominate a Black woman to the Supreme Court, which is, fine. That's good. There's never been a Black woman on the Supreme Court before. And obviously that's not because there were no Black women that were meritorious enough to have been on the Supreme Court. It was because of racism. And obviously there are Black women today who are qualified and would be good Supreme Court judges. So the stupidest thing about this conversation is that people are pretending that there is a person who is the most qualified to be a Supreme Court justice, and they should be picked. That person doesn't exist. That's not a thing that is in the real world. A person that is the most qualified. That doesn't even make sense as a proposition. And and
the Republicans have made it very clear their number one qualification is the Federalist Society.
Right.
Have you been groomed by these dark money, shadowy groups who've been operating on billionaires' funds for all these decades? They've been building this bench of creepy reactionary lawyers that they can, put on these judge positions. So it's not about their talent as a lawyer, their accomplishments in court, how many decisions they've ruled on. That's not really that's irrelevant to what they're attempting to do by putting their allies on the court. And something that is also frustrating about this conversation in particular is that both Democrats and Republicans are obnoxious.
Yeah, and it's not even like when we're not trying to be cynical, like everybody knows that this is done. Like people, and when you start getting to things like at these super high levels, like like I said, there's simply not a person that is the most qualified. You have dozens and dozens, hundreds, thousands of people that are qualified for this position. And so there are constituencies that you have that you want to cater to, that you want to show that you are supportive of them. And so of the pool of people who meet the minimum qualifications, even if I don't even know that is frankly being qualified for Supreme Court justice, like I don't give a damn, frankly, about your law degree. For all I care, appoint a 24-year-old Unite Here member that works at a casino in Las Vegas, and they would be just as good as any of the people that are being
they'd be more likely to have my back.
Yeah. So
and
like
the back of the types of folks who listen to our show and who work for a living.
Exactly.
So
I don't care but let's accept that framing. There's a certain minimum qualifications that you have to be a Supreme Court justice, even though that's not in the law. Let's stipulate this. There people like Trump did this. Trump said when he was replacing Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the court, he said it's going to be a woman. And there wasn't this, like, nobody cared because like we were not being children. We weren't being like precious about it. And Ronald Reagan did the same thing. Nobody cared because we weren't being children about it. And do you seriously think when John McCain picked Sarah Palin that was not part of the calculus? Like, because on the Democratic side, you had potentially and ended up being the first black president. So on the Republican side, they wanted to have a first something as well. And like Sarah Palin was not the most qualified person in the United States to be vice president. Of course, there was identity involved in that. There was political constituency groups involved in that pick. Like that's how it's done. Like we're not children.
And besides just the practical realities that you're talking about that everyone engages in, all sides, it is fundamentally a positive development to have the people in charge reflect the people they're in charge of. Governments and the organizations, institutions. Yeah, the folks who hold offices should reflect the diversity of the constituencies.
Yes.
So, I just want to make that very, very clear.
Right.
I'm not upset that Joe Biden made that pledge. I'm not upset that he seems intent on keeping that pledge. Mm-hmm. But what it exposes is the limits of that kind of identity politics. To simply say, well, we're going to make sure that we appoint a black woman. Well, okay,
you can't just end there.
What kind?
Right.
Because what's her name? Like Candace Owens. She's a nut job. She's a black woman.
Right.
Right. I mean, and I know that's an extreme example, but
of course
that is the limits of simply like doing like diversity bingo. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. We don't have a black woman yet. This find one of those, check it off the list.
Right. And that's and like we've been critical of some of these things. You can go back and watch our interview with Paul Prescott about, some of these diversity trainings and whether or not they even do what they pretend to do, or like we've been critical about this kind of stuff on the show. But it's good to have, and it's something that people, when you're organizing a union, you want your union, your organizing committee, the leadership of your union to reflect the people that you represent and
reflect your membership. Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's good. But that can't be like,
you don't stop there.
You don't stop there.
As Cornel West, the great Cornel West, will say, putting black faces in high places.
Right.
That's not the same as racial justice or equity.
Who was it? I was reading an interview in the New Yorker, I think, of Adolph Reid. And Adolph Reid is a professor at a university, and he teaches at some of these higher universities.
He's got a lot to say about Obama.
Yeah. And he said that he taught people like that, like people like Obama. Mm-hmm. And he said that he could tell from these students that they thought the civil rights movement was so that, they could be on the board of Exxon. And that's like not what it was about, right? You know, I mean, sure, if there's going to be an Exxon and if it's going to have a board that's not elected by workers, maybe it's better that there are black faces on it, or it is better that there are black faces on it than not. But that's not what the Civil Rights Amendment was
simply,
about.
you know,
So-
diversifying the elites
yes,
doesn't make them any less elite.
So
And we've all, I mean, I know that I have dealt with supervisors who were women or who were minorities or who were gay, who were awful to their employees, who were of the same, you know, demographic background.
right. And so what are we talking about? We've been talking around it. There are a few people on the short list for Supreme Court nomination from President Joe Biden, and one of them is Michelle Childs from South Carolina. She is a South Carolina District Court judge, and her biggest enthusiast, I'm reading this from the American Prospect. The American Prospect. It's in the show notes. The title is Clyburn Pushes Management Side Labor Attorney for Supreme Court. And Clyburn is the one that got the reporting is that Clyburn is the one that got Joe Biden to agree to appoint a black woman to the Supreme Court, the first chance that he got, and that's fine. And he's been her biggest backer. Well, so let's review her record then. Bloomberg Law has 25 cases registered in which Childs participated during her time at the firm being Nexon, Pruitt, Jacobs, and Pollard. 23 of those involved alleged employment discrimination or other employment-related civil rights violations. Race and gender were common factors in such suits, and 7 such cases entailed race-based job discrimination, and another 3 involved sex-based job discrimination. In all but 2 of these instances, Childs was representing the boss, the defendant, against people alleging race and sex discrimination. I mean, in Childs represented Conseco in Green v. Conseco Finance, for example, where the plaintiff, an African-American woman, alleged race and pregnancy discrimination in a situation where the company denied her a promotion and then terminated her outright. Childs represented the boss here. Childs represented the boss, and she eventually withdrew. I don't know why, but she eventually withdrew from the case, but she did represent the boss in this case. And the plaintiff was awarded $193 in damages. The plaintiff won. In Harris versus L&L Wings, a plaintiff alleged near daily sexual assault by a workplace supervisor for years, and Childs represented the company. A jury sided with the plaintiff, awarding compensatory and punitive damages and even attorney's fees. That's insane. Meanwhile, Nexon Pruitt, where Childs was a partner, has for years boasted of its anti-union services, advertising to firms hoping to keep their workplace union-free and offering strength in unfair labor practice and union representation issues. The firm also warned against the impacts of the PRO Act and the Build Back Better Act. That's insane.
Yeah. And I'll say this as someone who has worked closely with attorneys, and, you know, for all we say about lawyers, there are plenty of good people who go into law and are trying to do the best they can in the system we have. And occasionally when lawyers run for office, as they are prone to do, folks will bring up, you know, especially if they're a criminal defense attorney, right? Inevitably, someone's going to go look up like the sleaziest or most violent, just awful client that they had.
Right.
So, oh, yeah, they defended this child molester. They defended this murderer. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm willing to to look at that in the sense of their job was to be a criminal defense attorney.
Right.
And I believe everyone's entitled to, a good defense and due process. And so if they were doing their job effectively for their client, hey, I'm not going to hold that against them if they defended some people that were in fact guilty. That's, so it's not like nitpicking with someone's legal career. If this had been just like a few cases she was involved in, if this was just part of a very broad legal career, even that I think would be different. But what you've described with her and the reporting with American Prospect and from others, this is her career, is working in union busting and for the employers against workers who have been discriminated against and have been exploited. That's a problem.
Right.
If that's your specialty, that's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, public defenders who defend murderers and rapists and these sorts of horrible people, they are like the most important people in our society, basically. Because these, it's important, like Adam said, to have that people have a right to a defense. But you as a lawyer, it's different. Being a public defender, you make like $40,000, maybe $50,000 a year. Like you're overworked. You're not making, when you are at a level, you choose the firm that you go to work for, and that this is working for big law in this way, that's a choice. It's a choice is what I'm trying to say. And it reflects something about you that you would choose to work for a firm that advertises its anti-union services. There are several law firms that do not do this. It says something about you that you would be willing to work on a case for a big corporation, not as a public defender, but as somebody making, probably thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars an hour on these cases for big corporations against people alleging sex and race discrimination. That says something about you as a person and as a judge, as a potential judge, and as a lawyer, that people have a right to be concerned about. And people in the labor movement have been voicing some concerns. The Washington Post has some reporting on that. Larry Cohen, former president of the Communication Workers of America, said, quote, her labor record, her years as a management side lawyer definitely paint her as somebody who could just as easily be a Republican and certainly has no record supporting workers' rights. This is of great concern to many of us. She spent years on the wrong side.
Yeah, don't paint this as a, victory against discrimination when her legal career has been protecting employers who discriminate.
Right.
Okay, right. You can't that's just a bridge too far. I'm sorry. I accept that no nominee they have is going to be perfect. They're all going to have issues that I take with their record. But like you said, at some point, you kind of chose to make this your thing.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not saying that you should have, spent your career as a public defender and working for the ACLU or whatever. You do you, boo. But a union buster,
maybe you shouldn't be. Maybe you just shouldn't be a Supreme Court justice. If you want to be, Maybe, I don't think so. But let's even stipulate that it's legitimate to make millions of dollars a year as a union busting attorney because because they have to have a defense or whatever. Let's even stipulate that that's legitimate. I don't think it is. I think it makes you a bad person. Okay. I do. But
it more importantly, does bad things to the people.
Right. But let's even stipulate that that's fine. Okay. Maybe you just shouldn't be a Supreme Court justice. Maybe Biden just doesn't have to pick you.
Right. And that's what it is. What does that say about the administration that they would even float this out there? And now Clyburn has never been shy about the fact that he is a corporate stooge.
Right.
That's very obvious. He's not very discreet about the fact that he is in the pockets of, big pharma and corporate America. And, this is his girl. That says a lot. Lindsey Graham also has put out supporting statements about her. So that says a lot. If Clyburn and Lindsey Graham are on your side, you're probably not on my side.
Yeah. Yeah, and the Larry Cohen wasn't the other one. Wasn't the only one. Sarah Nelson, president of the Association of Flight Attendants, said there's a long list to choose from, and that's why it's great that President Biden can pass on a management side lawyer like Childs, who has argued disdainfully against workers' rights in favor of several other candidates who have been in the trenches with workers and have a proven record of upholding worker rights. And David Borer, general counsel of the American Federation of Government Employees, said she comes from an anti-union law firm where she spent time defending employers from claims of civil and labor law violations. That's not what we need.
I appreciate them stepping up and speaking out as labor leaders and making it clear that this is not a win for the folks who elected Joe Biden into office.
Absolutely not. So we can't have that. I mean, she has to be defeated, and we have to have somebody better. There are plenty of black women out there that would be fantastic Supreme Court judges, like any number of random Unite Here members. I mean, honestly.
Support for this program also comes from the Iron Workers, Local 477. So if you are looking for contractors with lower than average EMR and TRIR, they tell me that if you need to know what those mean, then you will. Or if you need to supplement a workforce at any level for any amount of time, short or long term, if you need iron workers that come trained and certified at no extra cost, or if you need workers from superintendent down to general laborer and you're looking to start work on a project, or you're unhappy with your current contractor situation, you need to call my friend Jeb Miles with the Iron Workers Local 477. They only work with the best in the business, vetted contractors, and can do all kinds of jobs, from roofing to steel and bridge erection, from welding to heavy rigging, from structural repairs to machinery alignment, and much more. They supply manpower on 4 of the 5 largest projects in North Alabama, so you know they're legit. If you need good quality, safe, efficient, diligent, and knowledgeable workers on your job, then you need the Iron Workers Local 477. Call Jeb Miles at 256-383-3334 or via email at local477@bellsouth.net, and make sure you tell them that you heard about them on the Valley Labor Report.